Alright, we're going to be working on making the project, which is the sound activated LEDs. Parts that we should have for this are the circuit board. We're going to take these parts here, we're going to get rid of them, and we're going to replace it with a 9-volt battery connector. It's going to fit one of these rectangular batteries on it. And then we're going to have 5 light emitting diodes. These are red. These have polarity, meaning we have a positive and negative, and if you remember from the videos we watched, we have the short leg, which is negative, and the long leg, which is positive. So we have 5 of those, and we have 2 capacitors. These capacitors are electrolytic capacitors. They have a positive and negative. One leg's short, one leg's long. Okay. We look on the side of the capacitor to figure out which one it is. This one says 47 UF on it. Okay, so that's the 47 UF, and then we have one that should be 1 UF. And if we look, it says 1 UF right there. Then we have this. This is a microphone. Now it's only going to fit in the circuit board one way if we look at the outline on the board. However, if you were to look at the bottom of it, you'll notice this leg on this side has these 3 green lines. These green lines actually are connecting this leg to the outer casing, and the outer casing is negative, or we'll call ground. Okay, that's another way of figuring it out. So this leg here is the one on this side is the negative one, and it would end up going right in that hole right there, which is the negative, and the other one would go there where the positive is. So microphone, and then we have these 2 things. These are transistors. They'll matter which way that they go in. Luckily these are identical to one another. And the way that we tell which one that it is by looking really closely at the face of it. And this one says 9014, or SCENT 9014. That tells us which one it is. We should have 2 of them. Okay. Finally, we have 3 different resistors. And the way that we'll tell which ones these are by identifying the color bands. Okay. So, why don't we get started with our resistors. So, first one that we'll look for, these are 5 color band resistors. So we'll start with looking for this one, which is R1, which says here 4.7K. So that means that this one is 4,700 ohms. Okay. So the colors we'd be looking for, 4 is yellow, 7 is violet, and then 0 would be black, and then we have one more 0, so that should be brown. And then the last color band tells us how accurate it is, and it's probably gold, but I'm going to look for the yellow, violet, black, brown. So let's see here. Here it is. And if we look closely, we can see the colors on this are yellow, violet, black, and brown. Okay? So this is our 4.7K. So all we're going to need to do is bend the legs, stick them right in like that, bend these over at a bit of an angle like that. Okay, taper down and solder. And for soldering, we just want to make sure that we keep our tip clean. So I have that wiped off, and you'll wipe that off on your sponge. Okay. And then we'll put a dab of solder on the tip. We'll touch both the the silver pad and the leg of the part. So I'm going to put it in right here at an angle, feed my solder in, remove the solder, then remove the iron. Okay. Make sure that your tip stays clean. So I wipe it off every couple solder connections that I make. Put a little dab on here, touch the pad, feed the solder in, remove the solder, remove the iron. And then when we're done with that, we clip them off right on the top of the connection that we made here. And that's what it should look like when you're done. Alright, next part that we're going to put in here, we're going to go for this one. This says 1M or 1 mega ohm, which means it is 1 million. Okay, now to figure out what colors these are, well, 1 would be brown. The next digit, which is a 0, that would be black. And then we have another 0, which is black. Okay, and then we have 4 more zeros remaining, and 4 would be yellow. Okay, and it's 5% accurate, so that'd be gold. And so if we look for our resistor that's brown, black, black, yellow, gold, here it is brown, black, black, yellow, and gold. Okay, we'll take that, bend the legs, stick that right in there where it says 1M. Now I'm going to put in just one more part. I wouldn't put more than 2 parts in probably at a time, so there's one. Let's do one more. We'll finish by putting in this last resistor, R3. This says 10K or 10,000. So for figuring out what that one is, this one's 10,000 ohms. So the color bands would be brown for 1, 0 is black, and then we have another 0 which is black. Okay, and then we're going to have 2 zeros left, which would be red. And it's 5% accurate, so that should be gold. So if I look for that resistor, we should see it right here. This is starting from the left end here on my picture, or in my video, it's brown, black, black, red, and gold. Okay. All right, bend those over, stick them in, making sure that the part seats down all the way, and then you just bend the legs over. Now notice when I bend the legs over, I'm not bending them over all the way, I'm just bending them into a little bit of a V, and that's what you want to do. Okay. Should we need to do any type of work on it, it's hard to do, or it's hard to do any repair work or anything, plus you don't get as good of a solder connection in my opinion if you bend them all the way flat. Okay, so get them in, use a piece of tape to hold it down onto the tabletop. And then again, important is that you have a nice clean tip on your soldering iron, so wipe it off on your sponge, get your solder, and I'm going to pay attention to try to get my tip so it's touching both the copper pad or the silver pad here and the leg of the part. We want to heat them up at the same time, so to do that, we put a little bit of solder on the tip, touch, feed the solder in, remove the solder, then remove the iron. Okay. And I'll do one more. Put a little on the tip, touch, feed the solder, remove the solder, then remove the iron. Okay. And probably wipe the tip off again. And just so you can see a little better, I'm going to clip these off. Now on your diagonal cutters, I'm going to put it so that this end is the end I'm going to put down on top of the connection. Right at the top of that solder connection, I'm going to trim it. Okay. All right, let's do the next one. Now, you can, if you want to, you can trim it first, like that, and then you can solder. That's not my preference, though. I like to solder, then trim. Okay. Oops, when I was soldering, it went down a little bit, so I just had to fix it. Okay, do another one. A little bit on the tip, just a tad. That helps with heat transfer, touch. Feed it in, remove, and remove. Trim it. Okay. And you can take a look at what this looks. It should look pretty good. Trying to focus in on that. Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, let's do another part. Let's go with the LEDs. Now, if you notice on the LEDs, we have little what look like triangles. Okay, so the LED, the schematic symbol for an LED, looks like this. Okay, and the real part actually kind of looks like this, with one leg longer than the other. On the schematic symbol, this side here represents the negative and this the positive. And on the real part, this end is negative, this end is positive. So I want to look on my LED for the short leg. And another way, just an FYI that we can tell, is if you look closely, you'll see that, well, here's my short leg. You'll notice if you follow that up, this side's actually flat. Okay, so short leg, side with the arrow right here. Okay, so if you look at the circuit board, they actually kind of have the symbol printed on it. So the negative is this hole, this hole, this hole, this hole, and this hole. So put it in any one. I'm going to pick this one right now. So push it in, make sure it's seated down there, And then we're just going to bend these over at a little bit of an angle, like that. Okay. Flip it over, taper down to the table, and then with a clean tip, you can put a little on the tip, touch the pad and the lead, feed it in, remove, remove. A little on the tip, touch, feed it in, remove, and remove. Snip it off. Alright. Okay, I'm going to put in the rest of them now. Short leg goes to the side that the arrow's pointing to. Put 2 in. And a little on the tip. Touch, feed it in, remove, and remove. A little on the tip. Touch, feed it in, remove, remove. One more. A little on the tip. Touch, feed it in, remove, remove. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what to do if you make a little mistake. Okay. Let's see here. Alright, let's do this. So, well, let's just say that you accidentally get too much solder on, like that. And you'll notice what happened is it crossed between these two. That's bad. Just like on this one, these aren't touching. So if they're not touching, when you solder and you're done soldering, you can't have them touching. So that's bad. Now, what you might be able to get away with is by taking the iron and just kind of quickly running it through like that to disconnect it. Okay, you got to be careful. That's called a bridge if you have solder that goes between the two. So should that happen, try and do what I just did. Okay, and if you still can't get it, then we'll fix it later. Okay, grab another LED, put that in. Here, let me trim these out of the way. Okay, a little on the tip, touch, feed it in. A little on the tip, touch, feed it in. Okay. That should take care of all the LEDs. Okay. And if they're not straight, maybe it's a little crooked or something like that, like this one maybe, you could always heat it up while you kind of push down on it a little bit, and that sometimes will help so that you can maybe wiggle it into position. Okay. Whoop. It really wouldn't affect the operation though, but if it were to bug you, you can try to fix it so it sets down more. Okay. Okay. All right, next part. Let's go with the microphone. Okay. So that you're gonna seat that in. It's so that it lines up with the outline. Hold it down. Bend these over a little bit. Okay. And you're gonna still want to be able to get this to the tape to the table so it doesn't move on you when you're doing your soldering. And then again, still make sure that you wipe your tip off. Trim those. Okay, and now let's go with our capacitor. We're going to do, this is the 47 UF. That goes right here. Now you'll notice there's a shaded portion, and then right here where it has a little plus symbol. So the negative, if you'll notice, it has a short leg. Also on the side it has the negative symbol and it's pointing to this leg. So this leg here is the negative one. Alright, so put that into the shaded area and put the long one up where it says positive. Push that in. Spread the legs apart. And try to see if you can find a way to get that to hold where it doesn't move on you. clean tip, solder on the tip. Okay, let's move on to capacitor. Same situation, short leg, arrow pointing to the short leg. So short leg goes into the shaded, so short leg, shaded area. Get it in, bend the legs, secure it down, and solder. Okay, finally, we have the transistor and another transistor. Okay, all right, so we want to just put these in so that as you're looking at it from above, that they match up with the outline that's on the board, making sure that you get each leg into its corresponding hole. And you're just going to push this down. It's not going to go down all the way. That's far enough, just so that it's seated in there. Bend the legs over like that. Okay. And I'm going to put in the other one. Same thing. Push it in. Bend them over a little bit. Okay. And then we'll try to get this taped down so it doesn't move on us. Solder. Now when you're doing these, same thing. Should you end up getting solder in between these pads, you're going to need to fix that because we need just solder on each individual pad and leg. Okay, so they're not connecting between here and here and here and here. Okay, their solder is just going around the surface of that pad. Alright, let's cut these off. Alright, and what do we have left? Looks like that's it. And we just have the battery connector. So for the battery connector, what I'm going to do is push the wires, both of them, up through that hole. I'm going to put the black one in this hole that says negative, and the red one over here where it says positive. And hopefully they don't fall out. I'm going to just kind of pull these wires, that'll help. And there they are. Here I'm going to try and do this without taping it down. One to there, one to there. Alright. And then what I can do is I can pull these wires back like that. Okay, let's get these out of the way and give it a try. That should be everything. Take my battery and connect it. And you can see that when I talk or tap on this, that it makes noise. I wonder what would happen. Let's try putting some music on and see what happens here. Put on some media.
Friends without the R, best fiends.
You'll know your diamond when you see it.
See if we can get some
You'll know your diamond
music.
when you see it. You already know how much money you can spend.
And you know you'll get the low.
Those diamonds will give you a little spark.
Alright, there you got the idea. If it doesn't work, I would look really closely just to make sure that you don't have any solder that's going between two pads that it shouldn't. Double check, make sure that you have all the parts in the right way. And that's that.